With the release of the new Super Valkyrie and Super Minion, it is now time to teach you how you guys can use these at Town Hall 12. First and foremost, let's go ahead and start off by talking about the Super Valkyrie. Now, things that you want to really know is the stats before you actually really start using the troop. So, on screen, you're going to see the stats that you need to know in order to use the new Super Valkyrie. Now, of course, it's always important to take a look at the HP and the DPS, but also definitely looking at some other stats included, like how long it's going to take to cook, how much does it cost, and on top of that, how much camp space does it hold. And for the camp space, it won't get sprung by a spring trap, which is a huge weakness of the regular Valkyries. So Super Valkyries are definitely worth trying out, especially having that rage spell from that farewell gift ability. So the whole thing here is that this army composition I've seen the most success with. For the most part, a queen walk is better than a warden walk, so it's worth doing a queen walk in this case. So you want to try and create a funnel for the queen by using maybe a Yeti or a baby dragon, and you want to create the other side of the funnel by using the king and the siege barrack. So what you're doing with this is you are walking your queen in order to kind of cut off a certain area in order for you to send in your Super Valkyries and allow your queen to move in with them. You'll have the Hog Riders on the back end that's going to help clear through defenses that maybe the Super Valkyries couldn't really get through. Another big thing that you want to try out is using a jump and quad quake. This is just going to open the base up for your Super Valkyries. And that's something that you want to consider, is you want to try and make sure that the Valkyries are not breaking down walls too frequently, because if they do, you're giving a lot of the defenses time to take them down. So something that you want to try and mitigate when you're using this attack. So for starters, we want to start off by going through the funneling. And we want to first talk about just funneling that queen. Using a Yeti is a great way to create the other side of the funnel, or create one side of the funnel for the queen, because the Yeti mites will go for defenses, and if they're on the outside, that can really help you. Even if you're getting rid of defenses that are one tile in, or like, you know, within a wall segment or in a compartment. So you'll see that what we're doing here is creating this part of the funnel. We've cut off this side, and we're going to do the same thing here by using the siege barrack and the king. That way we're able to send in all of our Valkyries and the warden right behind. And that's exactly what you're going to be seeing here. We use the first jump, and we're going to be using a quad quake in order to open up the base for the Valkyries. We're also going to use the warden ability in order to protect the Super Valkyries as they move in. Using a rage spell yourself could also be very beneficial, but using the heal spells for the Valkyries, very similar to how you would with regular Valkyries, are going to be extremely good. But for the most part, you'll see that we did lose a lot of our Super Valkyries here to the single and to the Eagle Artillery. But for the most part, you'll see that we have Hog Riders to help with this back end portion. The Queen took care of the Eagle Artillery, so you can let the Queen do whatever. But as long as you can have these rage spells here really providing a lot of support, it's exactly kind of what you want to try and do. And this is a good example of, even when the Valkyries die, they do get a boost from each other's rage spells, and that is a huge step, because that means that any troops that are left, like for instance the wizards here, the king, the P.E.K.K.A., are all going to take advantage of that rage spell from the Super Valkyrie and be able to take down these defensive buildings and rest of these cleanup, or just the rest of the trash buildings. So for the most part, that just gives you guys, and sums it up, a great idea of using the Super Valkyries in a sort of Falcon-based attack. Now we're going to be taking a look at the Super Minion next and see what that one has to offer as well. Next up, let's talk about the Super Minions. Something to keep in mind is going to be the stats before we actually talk about the army composition that we have here for you guys. So the stats here that you see on screen are going to be very important to know. The HP and DPS are always going to be very important. Along with that, the army, or the camp space that it holds. Very similar to what we talked about with the Super Valkyrie. 12 housing space is not terrible, and you can combine it with dragons to provide even better support for the minions alone. So that is really going to be where you're going to be seeing a DragBat with super minions instead of using balloons. Now, in this composition, we're bringing more gear towards bringing an Ice Golem for the bats, and using the wizards to support both the king and the queen. So what we're going to be doing on one side is getting rid of the multi-target Inferno and a couple wizard towers, and doing the same thing on the other side by just getting rid of a funnel. So by funneling these areas out, we're allowing our dragons to move into the base along with the super minions. Now, another thing to keep in mind is knowing your key objectives. So you want to try to look for things like the Eagle Artillery, multi-target Infernos, wizard towers, and the Town Hall. These are always going to be extremely important to know, so when you're doing bats, you want to get these down as much as you can. So getting rid of the Town Hall and the Eagle are going to be very important, and then as many wizard towers and multi-target Infernos as you can. That is where this attack is really going to shine. So starting off, we want to start with the funnel on either side. So we're going to be using the king on one side with the queen on the other, and we're keeping this wide sort of view just to give you guys that idea. So we're using the queen on one side, and we're using the king on the other. If you see a need to use regular wall breakers in order to get something like a multi-inferno or a couple wizard towers, then you could obviously do that to get rid of it by just using the regular wall breakers, since they also do deal splash, or they do deal death damage. Another thing to keep in mind is using a lightning spell to get rid of the sweeper, and that could really be used more often than not if you think that the dragons will have a hard time pushing through. So that is exactly something that you should consider doing. Now here we're going to be using the super minions and the dragons along with the warden. We're pushing them right in, and take a look at the range of the super minions, and this is how you take advantage of them, and having the super minions back behind the dragons is great. Now notice that we're using the blimp right over, through, and going over to the town hall. And that way, we're able to use a Yeti bomb to get rid of the town hall very easily. Another thing that we can do is use the warden ability over the dragons and minions to provide more support and push them through this final sort of segment of the base and allow them to easily get down the Eagle Artillery. Now, once you've gotten all of that down, once you've gotten as many of the splash buildings as you can, it's now time to start in your bats. Now, you want to make sure that you're sending them into an area where there aren't too many splash buildings. So notice here how there are no wizard towers. We're going to let them accumulate over time, and we can use the free spells, and we can also use an ice golem to provide more support for these bats. And that way, the wizard tower is locked on to the ice golem instead, and we can use the free spells over the multi and wizard towers in order to allow them to get through the rest of it. And that's exactly what you want to try to consider. Even though in this case we did lose quite a bit of our bats towards the back end, we had a ton of the dragons and the minions still up, which definitely helped getting through the rest of the base. That gives you guys a very good idea of using the super minions with the dragons. You can also do this in a mass format. Unfortunately, I don't really have an example for that for you, but I know that that is quite true. So, if you think that you can actually push the base with 20 super minions, that might be a very good idea to do. And I'll try to bring that one for you guys in the future, but for the most part, this gives you guys a very solid idea of using the super minions. But let's go ahead and give you guys a couple more examples of using the Super Valkyrie and super minions as well. Now, this next one is going to be a different variation to the first Super Valkyrie we showed. This one is going to be using the Hog Riders with the Super Valkyries. So that means no healers with this attack. So this is going to be something that you may want to consider using. It doesn't really work out nearly as well. It's not a smooth 3-star, but it shows you that some of the things that you could improve on to use this attack a little bit more successfully here at TH12. So you want to first start off by creating the funnel on either side. This is going to be using the king on one side with maybe a couple wizards, and you're going to be doing the same thing on the other side, but instead using a Yeti there. And as I mentioned before, the Yeti is a great funneling troop. You may want to start using that within your attacks as well. It's a nice pro tip, and the Yeti Mites will go for those defensive buildings over the walls, and if there are any on the outside, just to make sure that you're able to create some good pathing. So now what you've got here on this one is you can now send in a test super Valkyrie and then send the rest of them in. Now you've got the Queen and the Warden to move right behind them, and then when they're dealing with the Clan Castle troops, drop a poison, use the Warden ability to protect them, and use the Quad Quake to open more of the base. That way you're able to still move through the base and allow your Super Valkyries to get a ton of value. This is really where you can also have the Hog Riders included, and some of them might even take the rage spells and take advantage of that. Using the heal spells as well in order to protect the Hog Riders is going to be the most important part as you move through. You want to try and make sure that they are kind of moving around the base, and you want to make sure that you are keeping them alive as you move in. Unfortunately though, in this attack, we do lose a bulk of our Hog Riders, thanks to this little area here where we have the lowered archer tower and a bunch of other splash buildings. So it's definitely a little bit difficult in terms of this base design, and it does fall a tad bit short. However, you can still fix this attack by bringing in either more freeze or bringing like a freeze or something else in terms of really supporting your hogs and making sure that the Valkyries for the most part can stay alive. This may not have been a clear-cut, very clean example of using this attack, but still gives you an option to use this on. Unfortunately, with this attack, it does end by the Warden clutching it up, and if there were any other key defensive building still up like an Inferno, it really wouldn't have been it. So he did get a little bit lucky in this friendly challenge, but was still able to get through it nonetheless. Just gives you guys an extra option if you're going to be using the Super Valkyries here. Adding them as part of like a kill squad is definitely something that I would try to consider doing. So that is going to be it for the Super Valkyries, but we have one more example to give you guys a nice variation of using the Super Minions. Now, like we mentioned before, you can use this with the dragons, and one of the best parts here as well is you don't always have to bring an ice golem with this or anything. So you can see that we're bringing in 8 dragons and 10 super minions. So that means that all we're going to be doing is creating a funnel on one side using the king on one side, so we can write the king, and then we're going to be using the queen on the other side just to create this funnel. And then all we're going to be doing is sending in our dragons, the minions, the warden, and that way we're able to easily push in. We've also got the use of a lightning spell, very similar to what we talked about before, where we're going to be using that to get rid of a sweeper in order to keep the dragons going through. Now, the previous example that we had of the dragons or the DragBat with the super minions, one thing that we didn't mention was using the warden ability over the blimp, and that's something that you're going to see within this example. Making sure that you're able to do that just in case that you're going really far away from the town hall is going to be one of the basic things that you need to understand. So starting off, we've got the use of the dragons moving in with the warden, and then we're going to hold off, and then boom, we're going to be dropping in the super minions. We want to make sure that these super minions are moving into the base, and we're keeping the use of these dragons as the tanks. And that way, we can have the warden ability right over the blimp and the minions, along with the dragons, as they push into the rest of the base, and the battle blimp goes in for that town hall. So as everything is kind of moving around, we're going to easily take care of the town hall thanks to the rage and the Yetis. So that's definitely what's going to really help get rid of it. And remember, like I mentioned before, the bat spells are always going to be really important. So notice how we're using them over in an area where there isn't too many splash defensive buildings. That way we're able to easily move through. Now in this case here, we do have some of the bats kind of splitting, and that does cause a little bit of panic, but don't worry, because as long as you're able to fix up simple mistakes like you see here, where the freeze was just slightly off and it was timed a little bit bad, but was still able to easily move through it. So definitely something that you always want to consider doing when you're using the super minions. Now, if you guys want to see more videos on the super minions and also the super Valkyries, let me know in the comments below. That would definitely be a big help for me and lets me know that you guys are interested in seeing more using these brand new super troops, which in my personal opinion are totally worth boosting. So, if you guys are definitely interested, let me know in the comments below. I also want to make a individual video on how you guys can use the Super Valkyries themselves or the Super Minions themselves. Definitely something to consider. So I will try to bring that one for you guys, and hopefully you guys will definitely enjoy that and really learn something using these brand new super troops. But other than that though, guys, hopefully you guys learned how to 3-star with them. Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bar for more educational Clash of Clans content. Make sure you guys go ahead and join my community Discord server. And with that being said, guys, that's going to be doing it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and be seeing you guys next time. Corrupt, signing out.